You might see me look up and down a lot. I had to print out my notes, and I apologize for that and the shuffling of paper in advance. So let's start with learning about pollination and why that's important. So in this diagram, it illustrates the process of pollination. The pollinator, which is this little bee, transfers pollen from the male part of one flower to the female part of another flower. That pollination results in fertilization, formation of fruit, and in the fruit, the growth of seeds. Seeds are then dispersed to land, in fertile ground. They germinate and produce a new plant. Then the process starts all over again. So without those pollinators and pollination, we wouldn't have lots of the commodities or foods that we enjoy today. So how can you attract pollinators? This is the perfect time of year for you to plant your new pollinator garden or to even expand your existing pollinator garden. When doing the preparation and planning for that, here are some helpful hints you might want to follow. Include flowers of various colors, shapes, and sizes, and we'll say trees for this purpose. As well as making this your garden, make your garden look colorful and more pretty. It also gives different bees and pollinators different areas and colors that they're attracted to. Include plants with different heights. They like to land in different areas, so include those different heights. Also plan for a succession of blooming plants. That way there's always a pollen source available, and that's important as well. And also limit or avoid your insecticides. I know that sometimes problems arise and you might have to spray for some type of issue in your garden, but with your pollinator garden, you could try to use some type of organic insecticide or pesticide that would not hurt or affect the pollinators as much. So now we're going to look at flowers from the bee's perspective. So all bees and other pollinators, they love color. They love the whites, the yellows, the pinks, and the blues. And the flower color is going to change when the reward is gone. The reward to the pollinator is the pollen. And on this slide, this is actually the view of how a bee or a pollinator might see a flower. So on the top, the UV markings act as nectar guides to guide the bees into where the pollen or the reward lies. So on the top there, that flower you see is the picture to the left is what we see with our eyes, but to the right is what the bee sees. And you can see there in the middle, that dark coloring, that's where the pollen is. So that's where that bee's going to go. And then the bottom slide, I think this looks like some type of daisy, I would think. But on the left, there is what we see. And then to the right is what the pollinator or the bee sees. Okay, so let's meet some of our different type of pollinators. This shows our different type of beetles. We have our soldier beetle. I'm not going to go through each one name by name. Also our wasps. We have some moths that are pollinators. Some more of our pollinators. Birds, especially hummingbirds, sweat bees, and other bees like carpenter bees, bumblebees, and honeybees. And then here are even more, even the tiniest of pollinators make a big difference. We have flies, as well as butterflies, and even bats are pollinators. And even ants and slugs can act as pollinators. So now that we know what pollination is and how it happens and how important it is, and are familiar with our different type of pollinators, in the following slides, we're going to talk about some trees that are beneficial for bees and other pollinators. I'm going to let you know their names, the growing conditions that they grow best in, the heights, and what type of pollinators are attracted to that particular tree. Does anybody have any questions so far? No. So first up is our red maple, or Acer rubrum. Did I say that right, Shannon? It can grow 50 to 100 feet tall. It has colorful fall foliage and red flowers in early spring. This tree likes full sun or partial shade and moist soils. It's a larval food plant for caterpillars of many showy moths. It's also a good resource for birds and bees. So in the left-hand corner, you see that is the leaves with the intense red fall color. There's also some that have the bright, and there's also some that have the bright red or yellow fall color on the right. Next is the southern sugar maple. This can grow 50 to 75 feet tall, has brilliant fall foliage, requires sun or partial shade with moist, well-drained soils. It's valuable again for bees and birds. And these are just some photos that show the different. This is the one in the middle shows what it looks like in the fall. And then the picture to the left, that's just showing what its leaves look like. This is a red buckeye. These grow from 10 to 40 feet. They have very showy red or red and yellow flower clusters that can be nearly a foot long. They bloom in the spring and they can shed its tiny bright green leaves by summer's end. They grow well in partial shade and moist but not soggy soils. These attract hummingbirds and bees, but the seeds and the shoots are poisonous to humans. Next is the serviceberry. It's known for its white flowers in spring. It grows 15 to 20 feet, has drooping clusters of white flowers and red or purple berries. It likes sun or part shade, well-drained acidic oils that are moist. And again, it's beneficial to birds and bees. So you can see how pretty the clusters of flowers are. And then you can understand why other wildlife will probably like the berries as well. I think this one may be one of my favorite flowers. This is you have to make sure I pronounce this right, the catalpa tree. These grow 25 to 40 feet. They have large heart-shaped leaves. They have clusters of ruffled flowers, brown seed pods. They like wet to moist soils. They often are a host to the catalpa sphinx caterpillar, and they attract bees. And there is a picture of that caterpillar on this slide, and an up-close picture of the bloom, which is very pretty. It reminds me, just looking at it, of kind of an orchidish kind of flower, but that's just me. Next, we have an eastern redbud. These grow 15 to 30 feet tall. It has heart-shaped, shiny leaves and showy pink flowers. These do well in moist, well-drained soils and partial shade. Leaf-cutting bees use the leaves in nest construction, and they take circular bites out of the leaf margins. As you can see in this photo right in the center, that is some leaf cutter bee damage to the leaf of tree of one of the eastern redbud. And they attract other bees as well. And they have a beautiful bloom as well. This is the fringe tree, which are I don't know if you've ever saw one in person, but they are very beautiful in person. They grow 15 to 30 feet. They show pendulous clusters of white flowers and are pollinated by bees. They have large, dark, grape-like fruit that are attractive to wildlife. They need partial shade and moist soils for optimal growth. So when you see those out, it almost looks like, I don't know how to explain what it looks like. It's just really pretty, but it looks like fringe hanging off of a tree. It's very, very pretty. This is the American yellowwood. These grow, this is a bigger tree. They grow 36 to 72 feet. They have showy flower spikes. They have smooth bark and yellow fall foliage. Pinnately compound leaves. They're deep rooted and drought tolerant, and they require partial shade. These are attractive to bees, and I'm sure other pollinators as well. This is absolutely my favorite, the dogwood tree. These grow 20 to 40 feet. They're a showy native tree with white or pink flowers, red berries, and often scarlet fall foliage. These do best in well-drained acidic soil and partial to deep shade. These are attractive to bird, bees, and butterflies. And they serve as a larval host to the spring azure butterfly, which is right in the middle there, that photo. And that's a beautiful butterfly itself. And these have beautiful flowering. They're just beautiful. Persimmon tree. These grow 15 to 20 feet. They have dark green foliage and orange fruit. They tolerate variable soil and moisture conditions and partial shade. And they're valuable for birds, bees, and mammals. The mammals like the berry or the fruit that they have. This is a Japan holly. They grow 12 to 45 feet. These can be used in the landscape as the full form of the tree, or you can train them to be a hedge as well. They tolerate a variety of soil conditions in sun or partial shade. They have inconspicuous flowers that attract pollinators, and the fruit attracts birds and small mammals as well. These are a larval host for Henry's elfin butterfly. And you can see that in the top right corner is that butterfly. And then you see the bud and the flower detail and the berries. So they're nice to have. This is a very popular non-native ornamental that's attractive to bees. This is a crepe myrtle. We all know about the crepe myrtle. They can vary in height as well as flower and foliage depending on the species and the cultivar that you choose, but they do require full sun. Variable soil moisture is tolerated. And these can be beautiful. I see it a lot. I don't know if you have it in your landscape, but I will tell you, do not murder the crepe myrtle trees by pruning them back all the way down. Do not do that. But that's another, well, that was last week's, that was last week's webinar. Crepe myrtle, okay. This is the tulip tree. These grow another large tree, 50 to 100 feet or taller. They have long, straight trunks with large, showy flowers, as you can see in the slide. Star-shaped leaves that turn bright gold in the fall. They prefer moist, well-drained soils and tolerates variable light conditions. These are valuable for birds, bees, and butterflies. These are a larval host to the eastern tiger swallowtail, and bees are attracted as well. So if you would like to have that swallowtail attracted to your tree, plant you a tulip tree. And you can see they do have beautiful, beautiful blooms on them as well, and beautiful fall foliage. Next, we have the southern crabapple. These grow 12 to 36 feet in height. They have abundant white and pink flowers and non-showy fruit that's heavily used by wildlife. And that's about all that probably could eat some of these crab apples. They're very sour. You don't, well, some of them are a little sweeter, but you probably don't want to eat those. You'll know when you bite into it, you'll spit it right back out. They require partial shade and moist, well-drained soils, and they are a benefit to native bees. Our next tree is the American plum. They can grow from 36 to 72 feet. They have white flowers. They use a medium water use. They tolerate a wide range of light conditions, but best in well-drained loams. They support honeybees, bumblebees, and other native bee groups. And plums are good. You will like the fruit from the plum tree. This is a silver bell tree. They grow 20 to 35 feet. They have showy white flowers before the tree leaves out. They have pale fall foliage and interesting seed pods in the winter. They tolerate and bloom in sun or part shade. The nectar and the pollen of the flowers attract primarily butterflies, honeybees, bumblebees, and probably other long-tongued bees. This is the golden rain tree. It grows 30 to 40 feet in height. They have clusters of yellow blossoms, dark green compound leaves that turn yellow in fall. Their seed pods lend interest to lots of pollinators and probably mammals. They tolerate urban stress, but it's relatively short-lived. So this may not be a very good tree to choose unless you just want one for a little bit. So that's a list. That's the short list of trees. I can send you a longer list of trees and shrubs that are good for pollinators.
Before we move on, there was a really interesting question in the chat box. Maybe you could shed some light on. Terry asks, how do we keep carpenter bees from damaging our homes without killing them? You have any insight?
Well, there are some different paints that you can paint and different things that you can paint onto the wood. The biggest thing is finding the holes, of course, and stopping them up, because once, it's my understanding, and maybe Heather Coolidge can correct me if I'm wrong, once the carpenter bees come and they find they've made their hole in their home for that year, they'll come back the next year to that. So you need to find the holes, stop them up some way. Some people I've even heard suggest WD-40 put in them. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I've heard of like filling up the hole, and you can do that with some of those silicone sprays, you know, the foam stuff and stuff like that. Or that's the only, you know, it's hard to keep them. Some people I've heard they buy the traps, you know, and the bees get, sometimes those can be a little effective. What do you think, Heather Coolidge?
Well, you started out absolutely right with paint. If you know the composition of your house is going to have some impact on it, but if you have paint is a more effective deterrent for bees drilling than stain is. So if you have the opportunity to use paint instead of stain, that's going to be better. Be very careful to wait until all the bees and the larvae are gone before you clog up that hole, because you can attract some severe damage from pileated woodpeckers if they stay trapped in the holes, because they will rip apart fascia boards to get to the larvae that are in there. One of the best things you can do to keep them off your house is not their preferred environment. They want a standing snag, a standing dead tree that they can drill into. So if you have the opportunity to leave a dead tree standing where it's not going to cause any, you know, damage when it falls, because a dead tree will fall, that is going to be the habitat that they will go to, preferable with a greater preference than coming to your house.
All right, thank you, you guys. I do not see any other questions in the chat box, but I'll let you know if I see more.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go over just some other ways you can help pollinators in your landscape. These native bee nests, you can make your own native bee nest. You can take blocks of wood like the one shown on the left. You can drill it with a drill, holes between 3 and 32 inches and 3 and 8 inches. The diameter, that's the diameter of the holes, approximately 3/4 inches apart. You want to use non-treated wood. The holes need to be closed at one end, and holes that are less than a 1/4 inch should be 3 to 4 inches deep, and holes that are more than a 1/4 inch should be 5 to 6 inches deep. You want to place this on the south or east facing exposure of your landscape, at any height between 3 to 6 feet. And you can get creative like some of these folks have in some of these other photos. But what happens is the bee will come in, she'll go in and she'll lay her eggs back there, and then the white, I keep pointing like y'all can see me, but the white on this end is where she's plugged the hole so that the eggs can hatch the larval and stuff, the larva and stuff like that. So that's something you can do to help. Let's say you don't have any wood, and you just have some, I don't know, some bamboo or something laying around, then you might want to you make one of these. You need like bundles of 15. For some reason, it didn't print my notes on that page, but you need bundles of 15 to 20 of like bamboo, or we used just like some you can use cardboard, little cardboard sticks, stuff like that. And you'll put them in a round container, and you want it to lay horizontally so that the stems or the shoots are horizontally there, and put them in a container. It looks like they have made a hole in something and placed this in it. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I should have looked at it better, I guess. But we made some with some children at an event. And we put them in cups to set. Heather, were you going to say something, Heather? We
play in the park before it was
Canceled.
Yes, play at the park before it was canceled. And we placed them in a cup for the kids to just have something, an activity, and they were really interested in it. It about killed us to cut the bamboo stuff to put into the cups, but we made it and everybody was happy. So that's another way, create your own. If you don't want to deal with the blocks and drilling and stuff like that, you can use these little tubes and get creative with it. Help by making your yard pollinator friendly. It's been a long week. Make sure that if you're going to create a pollinator garden in your yard, create in an area where maybe you don't cut the grass in that area, or you leave your brush there. Have a water source for them. Even if it's just a little divot in the ground or some type of rock that's got a little bit of a cup or a divot in it, something like that. Pollinators do need a water source. Also the color, make sure you include color in it. And of course, don't use any type of insecticide or pesticides in that area. I think that's about it. Just make sure, kind of make that area the pollinator area, and don't let anybody disturb it or anything disturb it. Here's some ideas, or this is some of the different plants and trees, and for spring pollen or nectar plants. What that means is this would be when these would be blooming, correct, Shannon? Okay, just make sure I'm telling this correct. So in February, of course, we have our red maple and our red bud. March, our red bud tree. Maybe if you have blueberry bushes, and that's a great source for pollinators. And then in April, the apple trees will be blooming, the tulip poplar, mountain laurel, and in May, of course, honeysuckle, persimmon tree, and the tallow tree. Some sources for summer, would be, in June would be that crepe myrtle, as long as you didn't crepe murder it before. A butterfly bush. July could be a sunflower, a milkweed, or sourwood. August would be bush clover, rose. Everybody loves roses. Then for fall, in September, it could be the goldenrod, your rose. October, sunflower, sumac, milkweed, sourwood. These are some different plants, trees, and shrubs that you can plant. And this would be when they would be blooming. Okay. Now that you have created your pollinator garden, why not enjoy it and help collect some great research information by participating in the Great Georgia Pollinator Census. This year's pollinator census is August the 19th to the 20th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. How can you participate? What you're going to do is you choose your favorite pollinator plant in your yard, and you sit there for 15 minutes and you watch that plant, and every time an insect lands on it, you count that. Then you go over to the ggapc.org. I'm not sure what's going on. I did not do that. You go to that website and you enter in your counts. And you do, I think you can do it all in one day, or maybe but ahead of time, go over to that website. Look at the information they have the counting sheets, how you can identify the different pollinators, and you can register there as well. This is some information that has been collected from some of the pollinators censuses. This is some small new pollinator gardens that are smaller size. From 2019, you can see that's when there were some created. In our county, it looks like there was between 7 to 17 created. And then in 2020, it shows how many were new pollinator gardens per year were created. And again, it says one aspect of the Great Georgia Pollinator Census is creation of sustainable pollinator habitat. These maps were created by Emma Harris and show that 1,861 gardens created as a result of the project by year. So it is a great source. And again, these are some of the medium pollinator gardens. And then this would be the larger pollinator gardens that were created. Well, I appreciate y'all watching my webinar. We all do. Make sure you sign up for those next webinars. And if nobody else has any more questions, I guess you all have a great day.